For decades, Tunisia has been seen as a producer of fashion, and very rarely as a producer of fashion designers. But that's rapidly changing. For proof, look no further than the 12th edition of the Tunis Fashion Week, this year held not in the capital, but in Tozeur, at the gates of the desert. A closer look now at 3 larger-than-life Tunisian designers with big plans for the future.
I'm Hedi Ben Mami, fashion designer and IT engineer. My collection is inspired by military history, everything from Carthaginian history to Ottoman and French history. It's also an ode to liberation.
The pandemic, coupled with some instability, means sourcing supplies can be difficult.
COVID has meant we're importing a lot less. And that in turn is an incentive to use local materials, be that vegetable fibre or cotton. I've even worked with a material called béton, concrete in English, and it's real concrete that looks like leather. It's a material I created, and it's basically a leather substitute.
Technical innovation, but in the service of something bigger.
Fashion is about getting across a political message, because, as you may have seen with the collection, there are some looks that I've used to mock some of the self-aggrandizement you see with politicians and the ruling classes. And that's mainly with the more extravagant pieces, those big breastplates. There's real humour there. It's actually quite tongue-in-cheek.
Seif Laouiti is the product of 2 cultures. He's half Tunisian, half Taiwanese. He based his collection on a concept in social psychology called reactance, the ways we try to hold on to our freedom when we feel it's under threat.
Tonight, my collection was about cyberpunk kids. I rail against censorship and the concept of sex. It's for the future iteration of Gen Z that doesn't want to succumb to those societal norms that older generations have succumbed to.
That's your response to the big social questions of the day?
To be honest, you have to have a message. Otherwise, you're just making more waste in the world. You either get a collection or a story, a concept with a message. We tried to regenerate the planet. We tried to save the planet. So yeah, either there's a message behind it, or well, maybe it's not for you. Upcycling was always been part of the NARCISO house, but now it's an exercise of styling, it's an exercise of fashion, it's an exercise of imagination, it's an exercise of oh, okay, I have this. I've been doing this since 2012, I guess, since 2012. So yeah, I have a lot, I did a lot, but then what can I do with what I got and make it new, make it better, without actually getting new stuff or adding more waste to the planet. So yeah, yeah, 100%, yeah, please people, upcycle. I mean, if that's what the hell, I don't know, but yeah.
Braim Klei isn't even 30 years old, but he's been around long enough to have fostered a certain ambivalence about high fashion. So much so, in fact, that he developed the concept of anti-fashion.
When I first started out, I was 20, 21. I was very young. No one knew who I was, because a lot of the Tunisian fashion scene is made up of people who went to school together. I came from nowhere, and I showed my first collection in 2015. And my first show also prompted my first appearance in the French newspaper Libération. I appeared in the same editorial as Yamamoto, Rick Owens, Elie Saab, and I didn't know a soul. But I started making contacts, I met people, and there you go.
So what are you working on these days?
My fashion is conceptual, architectural, poetic, but also hardcore.
how hard is it to source all the materials you need?
My supplier is Tunisian and he manages to find almost everything. He finds most of his stuff in Guangzhou, China. I've even got access to some 3D fabrics, which isn't bad when you think about what we have here. It's not even easy to get that sort of thing in Paris. When you're the kind of person who manages to make things happen, well, you make things happen. That goes for Tunisia, Jupiter, Paris, Ouagadougou. It's always the same.
This is Braim Klei's 6th time at Tunis Fashion Week. His message is always the same.
I want to create things that are universal, with no nationality. You can't put me in a box. I'm free.
Hedi Ben Mami, Seif Laouiti, Braim Klei. 3 designers united by their love of artistic freedom and proof that Tunisia is fast becoming a credible player in the world of design.